Thank you very much to everybody who's participating. I just say one thing: you don't have to put your face in the video or the photographs that you send to us, but it's nice to see people. But you know, if it's a nice looking woman, calm down, guys, because some of the comments we got on the bottom, we just had to keep deleting them. Treat our viewers and the people who send in the questions with a little bit of respect. It will be greatly appreciated. Also, the fact that these people's houses, you know, that the job hasn't been done perfectly or whatever, we don't have to start taking the mickey out of it. Let's not make these people feel uncomfortable. They've got a problem, they need it solving, and if you're in the trade and you want to come on, then if you can keep it civilised, it'd be greatly appreciated. Let's begin with Jacob Ashton. Now, Jacob Ashton was actually watching an installation video on our shower, on our electric shower. We did a Bristol electric shower some time ago, and he said, I've got the self-same shower, and I think probably he was thinking there was a fault with it, so he started looking on, Googled it, YouTube and so on, and came across our installation video, which didn't help him a great deal because we were showing how to put it in. And his problem is that he says he's got a lot of pressure on the shower. It's absolutely fine when it's on cold, but as he turns it up to hot, the pressure dies away, and he's wondering if that's a fault with it, or it's scale, or it's whatever. Now, what it is, Jacob, is that an electric instantaneous shower is heating the water as it goes through. So if you imagine it's like a kettle, very, very similar, it's got an electric element in it, and that kettle is having to heat the water, not sitting in the shower, but as it passes through the shower in a continuous flow. So it's got a big job to do. And that's why you get a 9 kilowatt, which is about 3 times as much as the most powerful electric kettle. You get a 9 kilowatt element in there to try and heat that water up. Now, it stands to reason that in the winter, when the water is coming into the house very cold, you know, just above freezing sometimes, it's got to heat that up to a comfortable temperature. In order to do that, water has got to be slowed down. You know, there's a thermostat, like a thermostat thing on the shower. You select the temperature, and then it says, okay, I can't heat it fast enough because it's too cold, so it slows that water down to allow it to heat it up. That's why you get the drop off in the flow rate during the winter. Now, as the summer comes and the water warms up that's coming into the house, you get a much better flow rate. And of course, you don't need it so much in the summer because, you know, people don't mind a cooler shower in the summer anyway. So you're on a hiding to nothing with the electric showers. And quite honestly, I do try to talk people out of having them if there's an alternative. And in your case, you said to me that it's a bit of a shame because you've got a cylinder full of hot water. Now, first thing I say is looking at that boiler. That pipework above that boiler with that elbow in, I don't know who did that, but I would be very, very surprised if it was a plumber of any description. Certainly a gas safe installer, you wouldn't imagine that they would be linking a bit of pipework up like that. That's an aside, you know, not your fault, but it's there. When we go up into the airing cupboard, okay, this is a standard cylinder, and you could actually put an ordinary shower on there. Now, I think that probably what I'm suggesting is that you're never ever going to get a good performance out of the electric shower. So there's two things. You either accept that and just carry on living with it. If you haven't got the money to change it, then that's fine. But if you have, then what you can do is you can stab that horizontal pipe that goes across the top of the cylinder. You can get a connection into that for a hot supply to your new shower, the pump shower. And you can also take a feed off your cold water tank in the loft, and you can put a nice little pump in the loft, which is a remote control thing. It just has a very low voltage cable going up to it to control it. Now, the beauty of that is that you could take that electric shower out, you could use the existing pipe that's going into it, and you could just feed that from this controller. You don't have to have it in the loft, you could have it under the bath. That's another very popular place to put it. But Aqualise are doing, there's a number of them around. In fact, I think every major shower manufacturer now makes one of these remote control pumps. The idea is it mixes it, the two pipes come into it, it mixes the water to the temperature you want, and then it delivers it down to the shower position, say above the bath or in the shower cubicle, with one single pipe. And there is even one where it just drops down through the ceiling on a surface mounted pipe with the shower head, so you don't really see anything. It's not an ugly contraption at all. So we'll send a couple of links for that for you. You can have a look at those and see if that's an option, but you will get a much better shower. You'll get a full power shower, pump shower out of that, and you'll be using your existing hot water system, which is a lot better. So I hope that helps you, Jacob. It's obviously a little bit of expense involved there, but if you're thinking there's a fault with that shower, there's not really. It's just a characteristic of electric showers.
Hi Skill Builder, this is Vinny from Milton Keynes. We had a steam room fitted a few years back now, but actually it's not been used as much as it should have been. The temperature is not right on the shower. It's either too hot or too cold. So please could you give me some advice how I can fix this problem? It has one of those thermostatic built-in shower controls on the wall. Yeah, I just need some advice really how I can fix this without having to rip the wall off. Look forward to the reply, thanks.
Vinny says, I love your channel, fantastic, keep up the good work and everything else. That's nice, Vinny, thank you very much. And he said he doesn't use it very much. He hasn't used it half as much as he might have imagined he was going to use it. Now there's a good clue for us, because if you don't use a shower and you live in a hard water area, then that scale, the water that's sitting in that shower, can just build up a little bit of scale, and once you get a little bit of scale on the mechanism, it's never going to be a smooth operation. So it pays to exercise it, pays to use it. If you've got a spare room that you hardly ever use, it's still worth you going in there, turning the thing on, just running it through its paces, and importantly adjusting the temperature, because a lot of people just leave their temperature on their shower set at one temperature, and then if ever it needs adjusting, you find that sometimes it's just seized up, scaled up, and it doesn't adjust. So it's well worth running your shower and just running it through those temperature ranges, just clear the scale off it. I do this with my shower every morning, because I start off with a hot shower and I finish off with a cold shower. And I recognise the valve, it's an emotion valve, 3-knob valve, so it's got a diverter that does the shower head and also a spray. It's a nice shower, by the way. It's got a Vernay cartridge in it, which is a French company, and they make cartridges for all kinds of shower manufacturers. It's a really nice thermostatic cartridge. If it had seized up to the extent that you couldn't use it, they're about 70 quid. But what I would say is don't go looking for a bargain, because sometimes you'll find a bargain. You'll go, Googling up, and you'll see that it says Vernay cartridge there. And if they're too cheap, if you see one for about 30 quid, for example, it's likely to be a copy, a fake. So go for the real thing. Go to a trusted supplier to get the real thing. What you can also do with that Vernay cartridge, you can just replace the wax capsule bit in the middle, which is the bit that actually heats up and cools down and pushes the mechanism inside up and down. But what I'm thinking is that you can take the knobs off that shower. So you've got a little in the middle there. Now incidentally, I'm just going to say this, that shower is mounted horizontally. I've never ever seen one mounted horizontally. Normally they're mounted vertically, that shower mixer, so that you've got the 3 knobs up in a line directly. So he's got it mounted across. Is there any reason why, if you mount it horizontally, it might start to malfunction? Would that mean that the water was hanging around and influencing the thermostatic cartridge? I can't really see that being the case, but if, for example, it was under warranty and you called a service engineer out, they might take one look at it, say it's not mounted in the correct position, it's supposed to be mounted vertically. You can take off those knobs, that little button in the middle. If you just unscrew that, and inside is a little grub screw, and you can just loosen the grub screw with an Allen key. You slide those knobs off, put them to one side, and then you can get that cover plate off the tiles. Now the cover plate is normally just siliconed on, and hopefully whoever fitted that hasn't done a massive wodge of silicone behind there. I just do a very thin bead of silicone around there, push it on, and that's perfectly okay to do the job. And it means if you need to get it off, you can get a very thin, sharp knife. I use those the disposable blade knives that you get where you break off the sections, and I just make a long section of that and then just start to move it off the wall. But if you get something like silicone remover or even WD-40, which is fantastic for doing this, and you just squirt it down the back, go away and have a cup of tea, come back and you'll find that most of that silicone is just decomposed. You have to just lever it out very slightly with the knife just to start, but then if you get that WD-40 down the back of it, it will just start to eat into that silicone, and you'll find that you'll just be able to pull the cover plate off quite easily once it's decomposed that silicone. You might find that you've got to pull it off halfway, give it another little spray of silicone, and then pull the cover plate off. Once you've pulled that cover plate off, you can get at the mixer, the thermostatic mixer. You get a big spanner on it, and you just gently undo it, unscrew it. And inside, this is the middle one, by the way, of those 3 knobs that you want the temperature control. And inside, you'll find this Vernet cartridge, which you can just get some descalant fluid, pop it into a dish or something with the descalant fluid in it, leave it overnight, and you'll find that it'll clean it up and take the scale off if there's any scale. There's a filter around the edge of that cartridge, which is quite nice, which keeps most of the scale from getting out. Pop it back in. You don't need to put all that cover plate and everything back on. You can just pop it back in, screw it in, give it a test, see if it works. Now, having said that, I just remembered that you need to turn the water off, but actually on that one, you can just use the left hand. So long as you don't actually turn the flow on, you can work on the other one, but as a precaution, you might want to just turn the water off. If you use it more, it'll work better. I was talking to the manufacturer, he said to me, all the malfunctions were due to scale, so they just simply descaled them, tested them out, working fine, sent them back. You don't have to hack the wall down, so that's the good news. Anyway, thanks for sending that in, Vinny, and good luck, and thanks for making such kind comments about the channel. Jono Walsh. Now, Jono, he sent us in, what has he sent us in? Oh yeah, it's not a picture, he's camera shy, that's it. Good one, Jono. What he's planning on doing is to lay a wood block floor. He wants to lay a wood block floor, what we used to call parquet flooring. He wants to lay that on asphalt. Now, asphalt is just basically like you get in the street, and they used to use it quite a lot in buildings as a sort of damp-proof membrane, if you like, across the floor. If it's a genuine asphalt, which is a thicker, spongier sort of thing, you can stick wood block flooring to it. But as he said, he's looked online and people are saying, oh, the troubles with that, don't do it and everything. I emailed him and I said to him, why do you want to do this wood block flooring? Because it's very unusual now and a very quite difficult thing to do, actually. Even though it comes in little sort of fingers of parquet come in a big sheet and you put it down, you've still got to know what you're doing to make a decent job of it. If it's ready sanded stuff and you can get it smooth enough and you can get it flat, then fine. But I would suggest it's not a job for a DIYer. If you've never done it before, I certainly wouldn't have a go at doing it. The alternative is engineered oak or something like that, or maple or whatever you like, which comes in bigger sheets and it's got a plywood back and you put it down. And I said to him, why don't you go for that? That's going to make your life so much easier. And you can put it down as a floating floor. A floating floor is just basically all the bits are joined together. They're either glued together, or now you get these tongue and groove click systems where they just all click into place. So you put the whole thing down on top of a sort of damp-proof membrane. Is quite good. So you put the whole thing down as one and it just sort of stays there and it expands and contracts and it's perfectly happy, no problem. And he said to me, well, the reason he's resisted that, he said, what happens if you get some damage in the middle? And he's thinking if he puts down wood block flooring and he gets a chunk out of it, he'd just be able to lift that bit of wood block up and pop some more in. I said to him, really? Are you going to do that much damage? Why don't you just stop the kids bringing their roller skates in or whatever? You know, I can't see in the main why you should damage a floor. You know, if you're fairly civilized and you don't go walking around in your high heels, Jono, you should be all right. If you do damage it, what I would do is cut the whole of that plank out. You can then slide the edges of it out and you can put a new piece in the middle, but you obviously have to lose the tongue and the groove on one side. So basically cut the back off the groove. So you put your tongue in, place it down, and you glue all the way along with a bit of PVA glue, and then just put some weights on it overnight. The worst comes to the worst, you can make a repair. You can get somebody and get a professional in who's done it before, and they will be able to do it. And the good news is you can get it on your insurance. You know, if you damage a floor and it's an accident, it's possible to do. Now, if you've got areas, say, around the hallway, or even if you've got it in a kitchen and you've got around the sink area, you're always going to get that bit of wear. Now, if it's varnished, the only option you've got is to sand the whole floor off and revarnish it. What I do is I use the oiled one. Now the oiled one's just as tough. After it's been down for a year and maybe it's looking a little bit tired and so on, you can just go around the whole thing. Bit of white spirit, not water, because that will swell it up. Just give the whole thing a good rub down. Very light sand with a sort of 320 grit paper or something like that. Just rub it off, just make sure you've got any rubbish off. Very, very good vacuum. Vacuum it twice. You just put the oil on with a rag or with a paintbrush or a roller even. You can do it with one of those little mini rollers I find quite good. And you look at it and it's like a new floor, and it really is stunning. Feel free to argue with me because, you know, I'm not saying I know it all. I just think I'm just talking about my experience. Thanks very much, Jono, and love your camera shy picture. Lee Henderson. Lee, he said that he was watching our Skill Builder previous version and he saw we'd done some things on cracks in brickwork and so on. And he said it got him thinking that he'd got a few cracks outside his house, and he said the survey said that there was nothing much to worry about. There's nothing internally happening there, it's only on the outside, and they seem to think it was due to expansion and contraction on the gable end. I would have loved to have seen some more pictures, Lee, rather than just the cracks. It would have been nice to see the end of the house and the whole thing, but never mind. The cracks are there, however they're caused, they're there. The original bricklaying, it's a rub joint, that's fine, but you can see there's been a little bit of repair work done there, and the pointing there isn't fantastic. So if, without being rudely, if you did that, and that's your standard of pointing, I wouldn't attempt to repair those cracks. And as I say, I'm not being rude, I just think that if you're going to do that kind of job, it's better to do it really well so that it doesn't show, because if you just look at a building, and it's very, very hard to do it so that it matches in, and if you look up at a building and you see somebody's done a little bit of a repair and they haven't done it very well, it just stands out like a sore thumb, whereas the crack he's got at the moment doesn't look horrendous. So it's probably due to the expansion or contraction, if you like, but anyway, some kind of movement. It looks to me like the mortar is very hard. That's a sand-faced flattened brick there, so it is a very hard brick anyway, but it looks to me like that mortar is rock solid. You know, I think that's a 4-to-1 mix on that mortar, and although people think that's great, you can see by the fact that that one brick there is cracked straight across that it hasn't been able to accommodate the movement in the mortar. Now I keep banging on about this, but the big mistake people make is to make that mortar so strong there's no movement possible. So what has got to happen then is that the bricks have got to crack. And also, if it's so strong, it locks the moisture in, and then the moisture spalls out the face of the brickwork. You can just see a tiny little example of that there. If the water gets into the brick, and then the only way it can escape is to spall the frost that comes off the front, and then you get that, what they call spalling. And you'll find that's quite common with sand-faced flittons, funnily enough, that they do just lose that sand face. There's no point repointing it, there's no point doing anything with it except tidying up that bit of pointing that's been done. I would suggest you could do just by getting a bit of brick acid, which is brick cleaner, which you've got to be very careful with. Wear your goggles, wear your gloves, wear your mask. Paint it on the brick, not on the mortar. You'll see it fizz up, and it will clean off that bit of staining around the mortar and just tidy that whole thing up. And then I wouldn't attempt to repoint it, because I think if you try to repoint it, you're never going to get a good match. So what I would do is I would get some mastic, and I would try and get a good match, squirt it into that tiny crack that you've got that's going along the mortar, the zigzag down there. Just squirt it in there, get a rag, get a bit of old sack or something like that, and just rub it so that it just puckers up the face of the mastic so it doesn't look like a smooth line, and it look as near to being mortar as anything. And the beauty is that if you get any more movement than that, it's just going to move with that joint. It won't re-crack, if you like. So that's a good thing. So if that joint wants to close up, the mastic will allow it to close up. If it wants to expand, it will allow it to expand. Now, as far as that cracked brick goes, get some mastic, just squirt the mastic into that cracked brick. Just get a trowel or something like that, a little envelope or something, and just somewhere down the bottom where it can't be seen, round the back of a hedge, or just as it goes into the ground, just take the face of an existing brick and just rub some of the dust off the brick, if you like, into a little pot or something, then when you put that mastic in on that brick, chuck your little bits of dust onto the mastic, rub it in a bit if you like, but then just chuck a bit more on, and that will stick to that bit of mastic and it will make it look brick coloured. From a reasonable distance, say 10 feet away, you'd have to look for that. You know, you wouldn't find it, and it would be so much better than doing one of those repairs that sticks out like a sore thumb. So if you're going to do anything to it, that would be my solution. Or you could just leave it and just acknowledge that it's there. The building's not going to fall down. It hasn't done any. There's no load bearing on that external wall anyway. It's only really there for cladding, and it's not horrendous. But if you're going to sell the house, you don't want to ring alarm bells, then that's the kind of repair that I would make. The next question, I've already had a look at this one, so I know what's going on here. This is from Lott. Lott. Yeah, the clue's in the name. Anyway, Noah's saying, look, I've got a bit of brickwork here that needs repointing. Do you think this is a DIY job? Do you think this is something I'll get involved in? So let's just have a look at the picture, Noah. Look at that. That's great. Thanks very much for that. He's obviously just found a bit of horrendous problem somewhere as he's been driving by. I do that all the time when I'm on holiday. If I see a picture like that, the old barn where the corner's falling off, I'm out with my camera stopping. My holiday photograph's really boring. Anyway, brilliant. Thanks for sending that in. That really is good. Yeah, I'm going to stick that on my wall. No, I think actually, just as a sort of serious point, if you like, it looks to me that corner has been pushed off by the roof. And I have seen that happen in a house, actually, where somebody took away the internal ties, if you like, the bits of timber that go across. They wanted to make a bigger attic, and I think these ties were in the way for them, you know, to get their train set out or whatever. And they decided to just take them. I don't know why people do that. You think, okay, they must be there for a reason. They think, oh no, they're in the way, I'll just cut them out. It's your roof, for goodness sake. So they cut those ties at the bottom of a triangle away, if you like, and then the roof just did that. Not by a huge amount, but just enough to push the wall plate off the wall. And if the wall plate had been better fixed to the wall, it would have pushed the wall out. You would have found a bit of collapse, as has happened in this picture Noah's sent in. So just as a word of warning to people, you know, don't go messing around with things like that. If you don't, you know, they're there for a reason. You start cutting things away, you've got to put in twice as much as you cut away. That's my golden rule. If ever I do any kind of alteration like that, loft conversions and so on, always put back twice as much in terms of strength and so on as you remove. Anyway, that's another little session almost over and done with, except we got one more here. Finally, our last one, we got an email in from Keith Bryden. Oh no, it came through on Facebook actually. Yeah, Facebook, there you go. So Keith, he hasn't got a problem. He just thought he would send in some photographs of some really beautiful brickwork. My goodness, what a great job. And that's the sort of job you do on day rate, not on price work, because he's been so neat with it. And actually, I'm looking at those pierced bricks he's used. They're engineering bricks and they're pierced, so they do come up beautifully on the face. You know, you don't get any staining. You can rub any marks off them quite easily. They're a bit of a pic-to-lay. They can take, you know, the mortar squeezes into the holes and so on. So doing it with those, I think, is harder than doing it with the traditional brick with a frog in it. Superb job, Keith. So you definitely get one of our new skill builder stickers that you can put on your van or put anywhere you like. That's fantastic. If you've got a job like that, just look at this. Oh, isn't it lovely? I love looking at good brickwork. One of the places I've been to is the Birmingham University. That place, the brickwork in it is just amazing. There's so much of it. Anywhere like that, Hampton Court Palace, that's another one you can go to. Beautiful, beautiful Tudor brickwork in there. Thanks very much, Keith. You know, I really appreciate sending that in, and it's gladdened my heart. So if you've got any jobs like that you want to send us in, or send us in the beauties, send us in the good, send us in the bad, and send us in the ugly, and we'll show them. Anyway, I'm Roger Bisbee. Thanks very much for watching that, and come back. We're going to do Ask Skill Builder again. Hopefully, if we get some questions in this coming week, we've already got some in. We've got enough to make another show of, I think, but we would like to keep this going. If you enjoy it, we enjoy it. And if it helps people out, that's the important thing. That's what we're here for, to try and help you out. It's not all about DIY. You might want to get a professional in, and we might just be able to give you a second opinion. It's always nice to have a second opinion, isn't it? Don't forget to subscribe.